I caught my uncle stealing from Grandma's account, so I gathered evidence and exposed him at Easter. My uncle's fork freezes halfway to his mouth when I slide my phone across the table and say, "Explain this." The screen is bright in the candlelight, a clean little list of transactions that looks harmless until you actually read it. And the moment his eyes land on the numbers, his face does this tiny twitch like a mask slipping. Around us, Easter lunch keeps breathing. Plates clinking, someone laughing too loud in the kitchen, the smell of ham and cloves and buttery potatoes. But my whole body is tuned to him, to the way his jaw tightens, to the way his hand goes still like he's afraid movement will admit guilt. "What is that?" he asks, voice too casual, already reaching for the old family trick of making me sound dramatic. I don't let him touch the phone. I keep my palm on it, firm, and I can feel my heart thudding in my throat. "That," I say, keeping my voice steady on purpose, "is Grandma's account paying your rent, your fuel, and your gambling deposits." He laughs, one sharp, dismissive burst, and pushes his chair back just enough to make it squeak. "You got to be kidding me," he says, looking around at everyone like he expects the room to join him in scolding me. My mom's eyes snap to mine wide, pleading. My aunt, his sister, goes pale and then angry in the span of a second. Grandma, at the head of the table, blinks slowly like she didn't quite catch what I said, her hands still folded neatly over her napkin because she always sits like she's hosting even when she's tired. Uncle Darren's face tries to rearrange into outrage. "You're accusing me," he says, louder now, like volume will do the work logic can't. "At Easter? In front of everyone?" I lean forward, close enough to smell his aftershave and the wine on his breath, and I hear my own voice come out low and controlled. "I'm not accusing you," I say. "I'm telling the truth, and you're going to answer her." It started in late February, on a random Tuesday, when Grandma called me, because her phone was doing that thing again. That's what she says when she's embarrassed she can't figure something out. I'm her oldest grandkid, and, somehow, the one who ended up being her unofficial tech support. I drove over after work, expecting to reset her voicemail or reconnect the Wi-Fi, and found her sitting at her little kitchen table with all her bills spread out like a paper map. She had that tight look around her mouth that she gets when she's trying not to worry me. "I don't understand," she said before I even sat down. "My pension came in, but it's not enough this month. And they said the electricity is overdue, but I paid it." Grandma is the kind of person who keeps receipts in a shoebox. She's not careless. She's not impulsive. She's 92 and stubborn and proud. And if there's one thing she's good at, it's making sure nobody can say she didn't handle her business. So when she said the numbers weren't adding up, something in me went cold. I asked her where she keeps her bank papers. She hesitated, then pulled a neat folder out of a drawer like she'd been waiting for permission to admit something was wrong. While she shuffled through it, she said, very softly, "Darren said not to worry. He said he's been helping me keep track of things. He said it's normal for prices to go up." The way she said his name made my stomach twist because it wasn't admiration. It was reliance. She needed him to be trustworthy because the alternative was too painful. Uncle Darren is my mom's younger brother. He's always been the fun one in the family. Jokes, loud stories, always has a reason he's broke that isn't his fault. When I was a kid, he'd bring cheap chocolate eggs and call himself the favorite uncle. As adults, he became the guy you brace yourself for at gatherings because you never know if he'll be charming or volatile. He's also the guy who somehow always needs money. A loan, a little help, a temporary thing that turns into a permanent expectation. My mom and aunt have spent years making excuses for him because he's had a hard time and he's trying and he's family. Grandma, especially, has always been his soft landing. After Grandpa died, Darren inserted himself into Grandma's life like a patch. He started doing her grocery runs. He helped with her bank apps. He offered to take the stress off. At the time, everyone thanked him because it meant less work for the rest of us, and Grandma seemed calmer. I even told him once, genuinely, "Thanks for looking out for her." He grinned and said, "Of course. That's my mom." I believed him because I wanted to. That day in February, I asked Grandma if she'd be okay showing me her banking app. She looked guilty, like she was doing something wrong by asking for help. Darren set up, she said. He has the codes. He said it's easier if he just does it. Then she added, almost like a confession, I don't like bothering you kids. I sat next to her and took her hand. You're not bothering me, I said. You're my grandma. This is what family is for. I didn't realize how loaded that sentence would feel later. We tried logging in. Grandma didn't know the password. The phone number on file wasn't hers. That was the first hard clue. I asked her to read it out. It ended in numbers I didn't recognize. Grandma frowned. That's not mine, she said. Darren said he put his because he always answers. My chest went tight. I told myself to stay calm, to not scare her. Okay, I said gently. We can fix that. I drove Grandma to the bank the next day. She insisted on wearing lipstick because she hates looking helpless. At the branch, we sat with a young staff member who spoke to Grandma slowly in that way that can sound respectful or patronizing depending on how you hear it. Grandma kept saying, I'm fine, while clutching her handbag like it contained her dignity. I explained that the account details didn't look right and we needed to update contact information. The staff member asked Grandma security questions. Grandma answered easily. Her maiden name, the suburb she grew up in, the name of her first pet. Then the staff member's expression shifted slightly when she pulled up the account activity. Not shocked, but alert. Mrs. Hayes, she said carefully, have you authorized a number of external transfers recently? Grandma blinked. What transfers? The staff member looked at me, then back to Grandma. There have been recurring payments to an account ending in 4921, she said, sliding a printed page forward. Grandma leaned closer, squinting. Her hand shook faintly. I looked at the list, and my stomach dropped. Rent payments. Fuel. Several transactions labeled with an online betting company. Not one-off small mistakes. A pattern. A bleed. Grandma's voice went thin. That can't be right, she whispered. Darren wouldn't. She looked at me like she needed me to say it was a misunderstanding. Like my mouth could put the world back the way it was. I didn't say Darren's name. I said, we need to lock this down. I asked the staff member about removing third-party access, changing passwords, changing the phone number back to Grandma's, and setting up two-factor authentication to a device Grandma actually holds. The staff member nodded and said they could help, but they'd need Grandma's consent and possibly a fraud report if funds were taken without authorization. Grandma's eyes filled immediately. Fraud, she repeated like the word hurt. No, I don't want trouble. He's my son. That was the moment I realized Darren hadn't just stolen money. He'd stolen her ability to feel safe saying no. He'd wrapped his theft in family, and family makes people swallow things that would be unforgivable from strangers. I swallow my rage. No trouble today, I said softly. Just protection. We changed everything we could. I took Grandma home, made her tea, and watched her try to act normal while her hands trembled against the cup. That night, I sat in my car outside her house after she went inside, and I just stared at the steering wheel for a long time. I kept picturing Darren laughing at Christmas, putting his arm around Grandma for photos, telling everyone he was taking care of her, while her account bled out into his life. I felt sick with anger. I felt sick with guilt for not noticing sooner. And I felt something else too, this cold, practical determination that surprised me. Because if I confronted him immediately, he'd deny it, cry, spin a story, and the family would rush to smooth it over. Grandma would end up apologizing to him for accusing him, and he'd keep doing it. So I didn't confront him right away. I gathered evidence. I asked the bank for statements. I got transaction histories showing dates and amounts. I documented the changes to contact info when Darren's number was added, when the email address on file shifted. The bank couldn't tell me everything because of privacy rules, but they could show Grandma what had been authorized from her account. I took photos of everything with Grandma's permission, then I made copies and put them in a folder I kept in my bag like a secret weapon. I also started paying attention to Darren's life. He'd always acted broke, but suddenly he had a nicer car than he used to. He'd show up with expensive sneakers. He'd make comments about getting lucky on a weekend. At first I'd ignored it because Darren always had some hustle story. Now, every detail felt like a breadcrumb. I told my mom what I found. I didn't dump it on her. I laid it out carefully, like facts in a room. I expected my mom to be furious. I expected her to finally stop defending him. Instead, she cried. Not for Grandma. For Darren. He's such an idiot, she whispered, hands over her mouth. He's going to ruin everything. Then she said, almost automatically, "Are you sure?" As if the proof needed to be gentler for it to be true. I showed her the statements. I watched her eyes track the numbers. Her face went gray. Then, like a reflex, she said, "Maybe Grandma told him he could borrow." "Ist er daher, stunned." "Mom," I said, "there are betting deposits." Mom flinched. "I know," she whispered. I don't want this to destroy the family." "The family," I repeated, and my voice came out tight. "He's destroying the family. He's stealing from Grandma." Mom nodded, still crying. "I know," she said, and I believe she meant it, but she still wasn't ready to do anything that would force Darren to face consequences. Mom's whole coping strategy is peace at any cost. Darren had been charging that cost to Grandma. My aunt, on the other hand, went volcanic. "I'm going to kill him," she said when I told her. Not literally, but the rage in her voice made my hands go cold. "He's always been a leech," she spat. "Always. And Mom has always covered it." Then she paused and said quieter, "What do we do?" That question mattered, because it meant she understood. Anger wasn't enough. We needed a plan. I didn't want to ruin Easter. That sounds ridiculous, given what was happening, but my grandma loves Easter. It's her holiday. It's when she insists on proper table settings and her old linen napkins and the little ceramic bunny she's had since the 70s. It's when she looks happiest, surrounded by people, pretending the world is still stable and kind. I didn't want her last few good holidays to be a courtroom, but I also knew Darren would use Easter. He'd charm. He'd hug Grandma. He'd play the devoted son. He'd distract everyone and then keep taking. So I made a decision. I would expose him publicly, in front of witnesses, in a way he couldn't twist later. Not with screaming, not with insults, just proof. Darren's biggest weapon is the family's tendency to doubt the person making a fuss. If I made it impossible to doubt, the pattern would break. In the weeks leading up to Easter, I kept gathering. I got Grandma to sign a simple authorization form allowing me to speak to the bank on her behalf about account security. We set up alerts on her phone for any transfer above a small amount, so she'd get a text instantly. We changed her card. We removed any saved payees that weren't hers. Darren tried once, just once, to transfer money again after we locked it down, and Grandma got an alert. She called me, voice shaking. "It's happening again," she whispered. I called the bank. They flagged the attempted transfer, and we added additional restrictions. That attempted transfer was the final nail for me, because it proved Darren didn't stop out of guilt. He stopped because he got blocked. Easter arrived with perfect weather, the kind that makes you feel like your life should be simpler than it is. Grandma's house was full of noise and smells, and people talking over each other. Kids running through the hallway. Adults carrying trays. Someone playing soft music in the kitchen. Darren arrived late, of course, with a bag of chocolate eggs like he was generous. He kissed Grandma's cheek and said, "There's my girl," too loudly, like he was performing for the room. Grandma smiled, but her eyes flicked to me quick. She looked nervous. I squeezed her hand when I passed her and whispered, "I've got you." Her fingers were cold. At lunch, Darren held court like he always does. He told stories about work. He made jokes. He poured wine for everyone except Grandma, acting like a responsible son. Mom laughed too loudly at his jokes. My aunt didn't laugh at all. She watched him with a rigid stillness that made her look like she might crack. I waited until the plates were mostly cleared and the conversation softened into that post-meal lull. I waited until everyone was sitting, until Grandma was at the head of the table, present, listening, not in another room where Darren could claim she didn't hear right. I waited until Darren reached for the fruit platter like everything was normal. Then I slid my phone across the table. The moment after I said, "Explain this," is the moment I'll never forget, because it was like watching a man realize the walls are closing in. Darren's eyes flicked fast, scanning for an exit. He tried the laugh. He tried the outrage. And when that didn't immediately work, he shifted into charm. "Sweetheart," he said, using my childhood nickname like it was a rope. "This is a misunderstanding. You don't understand how these things work. I help Mom with her bills. She asked me to." Grandma's voice, small but sharp, cut through. "I did not," she said. Everyone froze. Darren's head snapped toward her. "Mom," he said, and there was warning in his tone, like she was a child misbehaving. "You're confused." Grandma's chin lifted. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. "Don't you tell me I'm confused," she said. "You changed my phone number on the account." Darren's face tightened. "I did that to help you," he insisted, voice rising. "You never answer. You lose your phone. I'm trying to keep you safe." I opened the folder on my phone and pulled up the statements, then the screenshots, then the bank letter. "Safe," I repeated, letting the word hang. "Is that what you call $300 going to betting deposits every week? Is that what you call your rent being paid from her account? Is that what you call transferring money to your own account the day after a pension comes in?" Mom made a strangled sound. "Oh my God," she whispered, like she was still hoping it wasn't real, even though it was right there. Darren's eyes flashed, and now the charm dropped. "You've been spying on me," he snarled. "I've been protecting Grandma," I said, voice steady. I kept my tone calm on purpose because Darren feeds on chaos. The bank flagged multiple unauthorized transfers. "We changed your access. You tried again anyway. On March 12th, there's an attempted transfer here. After everything. After you knew." I turned my phone so the whole table could see. Darren looked around the table, searching for an ally. His gaze landed on Mom. "Lisa," he said, desperate. "Tell her. Tell them. You know I've been struggling. You know I was going to pay it back." Mom's mouth opened and closed, and for one awful second, I could see her wanting to save him. Then she looked at Grandma's shaking hands, and something in her face broke. "Darren," she whispered, "what did you do?" He slammed his hand on the table hard enough to make the cutlery jump. Grandma flinched. The kids in the other room went quiet. "I did what I had to do," he snapped. "Do you think life is fair? Do you think I asked for this? I was going to replace it. I was. But everyone's always judging me. Everyone's always." My aunt stood up so fast her chair scraped. "You stole from Mom," she said, voice shaking with rage. "You stole from her. You took money meant for her care." Darren pointed at her, furious. "Oh, shut up," he spat. "Like you've never needed help." My aunt's eyes narrowed. "I've never gambled with Mom's pension," she said. Grandma's voice came again, unexpectedly strong. "How much?" she asked, quiet. "How much did you take?" Darren's face shifted. For a second, he looked like a little boy caught stealing. Then it hardened into defiance. "Not that much," he snapped. I swallowed and said the number I'd calculated late at night, with shaking hands. "Just under 32,000, I said. "Over 18 months. The room went dead silent. 32,000 isn't just a bit. It's security. It's care. It's medical bills. It's dignity. Grandma's breath caught. She looked down at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Mom started crying quietly, shoulders shaking. Darren's eyes went wild. "That's not," he began, but he couldn't deny it because it was right there. So he pivoted again, because pivoting is what people like Darren do. He turned it into emotion. "Mom," he said, voice cracking artificially, "I'm your son. I am sorry. I was desperate. Please." He reached for her hand. Grandma pulled her hand back like his touch burned. "Don't," she said, and her voice shook. "Don't you touch me." That, more than anything, seemed to rattle him. Because Grandma had always been the one who forgave. Grandma always softened. Grandma always gave him another chance. Her pulling away was the first real consequence he'd ever seen. Mom whispered, "We can fix this," like she was talking to the air. I said, "We already fixed it." I looked at Darren. "The account is locked down. You're not on it anymore. Your number isn't on it anymore. You can't access it." His face twisted. "So you turned my own mother against me," he said, voice venomous. "You did that," I said quietly, "by stealing from her." He stood up abruptly, chair scraping. "Fine," he snapped, grabbing his jacket. "Fine. If you all want to treat me like a criminal. If you want to humiliate me. Have fun when she's gone, and you realize family is all you've got. My aunt took a step toward him, and for a second, I thought she might actually hit him. Get out, she said, voice low. Darren looked at Mum one last time, waiting for her to stop him. Mum didn't move. She just cried. Darren's jaw clenched, and he stormed out of the house, slamming the door hard enough that the hallway photo frames rattled. After he left, nobody spoke for a long moment. The air felt thick, like we'd all inhaled smoke. Grandma stared at the tablecloth, blinking slowly, and I could see her trying to keep herself composed the way she always does. Then she looked up at me, eyes wet, and said, I didn't want to believe it. Her voice broke on the last word. I stood and went to her side and put my hand on her shoulder. I know, I said. I'm sorry. That's all I could say because anything else felt too big. Mum wiped her face and whispered, Why didn't you tell me sooner? I looked at her, and the truth came out sharper than I meant. I did, I said. You just didn't want it to be true. None of you did. My aunt exhaled hard, like she'd been holding herself together with sheer force. We have to report it, she said immediately. Grandma flinched. No, she whispered. I don't want him arrested. He's still a thief, my aunt finished gentler now. Mum, he's still a thief. Grandma's eyes filled again. He's my son, she whispered, and the grief in her voice wasn't for the money. It was for the idea of him she'd been protecting. I sat back down and took Grandma's hand carefully. We don't have to decide today, I said softly, but we do have to keep you safe. That's non-negotiable. The next week was fallout. Darren texted Mum long messages swinging between apologies and blame. He sent me one that said, Hope you're happy ruining the family, and I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Because the wild thing is, part of me wasn't happy. I was relieved. I was furious. I was sickened, but I wasn't happy. Exposing someone doesn't feel like victory when you have to look at your grandma's face while her heart breaks. We met with the bank again. They explained the process for recovering funds for filing a formal fraud report. Grandma listened quietly, then surprised all of us by saying, I want on record. Her voice shook, but her chin lifted. I want on record so he can't do it again. Not to me, not to anyone. Mum cried again, this time with something like shame. Mum, she whispered, I'm sorry. Grandma squeezed her hand. It's not your fault, she said, and I almost snapped because of course it was partly Mum's fault. Her refusal to confront Darren had fed him for years, but I swallowed it. Grandma didn't need us fighting. She needed stability. We helped Grandma set up a new system. 2 signatures for large withdrawals. Alerts to my phone and hers. A separate account for bills with limited access. We put a lock on the folder where she keeps her paperwork because Darren had apparently been helping himself to it. We also started rotating visits, so she wasn't isolated enough for Darren to manipulate her again. Darren didn't show up for a while. Then, 3 weeks later, he turned up at Grandma's door when I was there, like he couldn't stand not having the final word. He looked rougher, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight. Grandma didn't invite him in. She stood in the doorway with her cardigan pulled tight around her like armor. Mum, he said, voice soft, attempting remorse. Please, I just want to talk. Grandma's hand shook, but her voice was steady. You can talk, she said. From there. Darren's eyes flicked to me behind her. Of course she's here, he muttered, and his tone held pure resentment. Grandma's gaze sharpened. Don't, she said. Don't blame her. She did what you should have been doing. She protected me. Darren flinched as if slapped. I said I was sorry. He snapped, then corrected himself quickly. Mom, I am sorry. I was in a bad place. Grandma looked at him for a long time, tears shining but not falling. A bad place doesn't make you steal from your mother, she said quietly. It makes you ask for help. It makes you tell the truth. You lied. Darren's face twisted. So what? He said bitterly. You're cutting me off. Grandma swallowed. I'm not cutting you off, she said. I'm protecting myself. If you get help, real help, maybe we can talk. But you will not touch my money again. You will not touch my accounts. You will not make me feel stupid for trusting you. Darren's jaw clenched. He looked like he wanted to argue, to twist it, to make her feel guilty. Then he looked at the firm set of her mouth and realized the old leverage was gone. He took a step back, muttered something under his breath, and walked away. After he left, Grandma closed the door with a soft click and leaned back against it, eyes closed for a second like she was holding herself upright by force. I stepped closer, but she raised a hand gently. "I'm all right," she whispered. Then she opened her eyes and looked at me. "Thank you," she said, and her voice broke. "I didn't think anyone would. I didn't think anyone would stand up to him." My throat tightened. "I'm sorry it had to be me," I whispered. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I'm glad it was you." That's the thing I keep circling back to when I feel sick about how everything exploded. Grandma needed someone to be the bad guy in the family's eyes for a moment, because Darren had been doing bad things with everyone pretending they were small. I hated making Easter into a confrontation. I hated seeing my mom cry. I hated seeing Grandma's trust fracture. But I hate even more the idea of Darren quietly draining her account while everyone stayed comfortable. If you're wondering what happened legally, it's still unfolding. The bank put a freeze on the payee account Darren had been using and opened an investigation. Grandma filed a report because she wanted it documented. My aunt wants to press charges. Mom is torn between protecting Darren and protecting Grandma, and for once, Grandma's safety is winning. Darren hasn't repaid anything yet. He keeps sending messages about working on it. I don't believe words from him anymore. I believe actions, and even then I verify them. Why do know is this? Grandma's bills are paid. Her pension stays where it should. She sleeps better now, even though she's grieving the version of her son she wanted to believe in. And for the first time in years, Darren can't hide behind family politeness because the truth is on paper, in statements, in a folder that doesn't care how charming he is. I didn't expose him because I wanted drama. I exposed him because I finally understood that silence was the thing keeping him safe. And I'm done keeping him safe.